It's another Manly Monday, and this Manly Monday, I've got a very happy Zelda on my lap, and we're talking about the motherhood penalty. Why some women, maybe the majority of women, look for men who make more money than them. This is one of those things that a lot of feminist circles deny. A lot of manosphere circles make a lot out of in, women are gold diggers kind of way. There's the whole 666 thing that includes a six-figure bank account, so on and so forth. And I want to give a reason that is no one's fault, that's supported by data, because, it is a phenomenon that does exist. I know a few people who are seeking out matchmaking services, and the women in the services are required to put up something like $400 for the service, whereas men are expected to foot a five-figure amount depending on the service. And the matchmaker's argument for it is that women are going to give things up in a relationship, and so men have to have the money to provide it. $400 for a woman of, age that a matchmaker would work with is apparently the same, according to these market forces, as, over $10,000 for men. And there is data to support this. Yes, there is. And again, I'm presenting this just as context. I'm not looking to persuade anybody. Notice I said I don't agree with the manosphere perspective. I don't agree with the standard, the mainstream feminist perspective. This is a phenomenon. There are reasons for it, however, and the motherhood penalty is, according to data, very much the reason. Now, fewer people want children, both male and female alike, persistently. Women want kids less than men, and a big part of it is financial. So let's look at the numbers here. I'm going to switch over. Oh, I'll help support this channel first. If you like this content that's data driven and, not not attacking anyone, just gives you the facts. If you like this content, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone can use but can't afford it, coffee.com/Leanna K. Now, why am I doing this on Manly Monday? Because I think this is an important thing for men to understand. It's treated as a feminist issue and therefore for women, but obviously, since heterosexual sexual reproduction is the driving factor in having children, this affects everyone. So we're going to start with, what the motherhood penalty is. Because of old workplace paradigms, becoming a mother can take a toll on a woman's earnings and jeopardize her family's economic security. That's reductive, not entirely true, but yes, workplace paradigms are a big factor. 41% of women are the sole or primary breadwinner in U.S. households with children. It's similar in Canada. Around 71% of mothers with children at home are working. Women's earnings, however, take a hit when they become moms. And it's interesting that we talk about the gender pay gap a lot. More and more, it seems to be a motherhood pay gap. There is still some discrepancy between women without children and men because of a fatherhood bonus, where men's earnings actually increase a bit when they have children. But their wives, or some partner or some other, either their wives are taking less money or they're paying for childcare. So is this really a increase in the long term? But you see here, hiring managers are less likely to hire mothers compared to women who don't have kids. including other women. I've encountered that myself. When employers do make an offer to a mother, they offer her a lower salary than they do other women. By contrast, men don't suffer the same penalty. 2 years before the birth of a couple's first child and a year after, the earnings gap between opposite sex spouses doubled. 2 years before to a year after, the earning gap doubles. The gap continues to grow until that child reaches age 10. So not just persists, but continues to grow until the child reaches age 10. Though it narrows after that, it never disappears completely. And so that's called the motherhood penalty, the phenomenon by which women's pay decreases once they become mothers. Due to the motherhood penalty, mothers make 58 cents for every dollar paid to fathers. That is obviously significantly more than the overall wage gap. 43% of women workers had at least 1 year with no earnings, nearly twice the rate of men. And this is where people start going, well, it's just because women take time off work. They work fewer hours. That is not entirely true. That is not. That is a partial reason for it, but not the only reason. Now, women who are, and this is from PwC, which is not liberal by any sense. Women who are 18 years old now will not see pay equity in their entire working life. So women deciding to have children now have to make choices based on this reality. And some numbers claim that the motherhood penalty is as much as 60%. This is PwC again. Now, you notice there's no citation on this, but here it is. Mothers experience a 60% drop in earnings compared to fathers in the decade following the birth of a first child, and women have lower pension balances at the end of their working lives. The motherhood penalty is now the most significant driver of the gender pay gap. Now, women also live longer, so this is a whole bunch of yikes. Now, there's no citation for this 60% drop in earnings in the decade. And I'm going to be completely honest, I haven't been able to find this study that they're citing. I mean, maybe PwC did their own study, but maybe give a link to that. The only one I was able to find is quite interesting. This is it was published, it's Denmark, but it's a co-study between Princeton, academic in Copenhagen, and then the London School of Economics. And this abstract published in 2018, so pre-COVID, and apparently women parents got nailed by COVID, like moms got nailed by COVID more than dads did. But Danish administrative data from 1980 to 2013, and this one's interesting because Denmark ranks very, very high on gender equity surveys. It's one of the best places in the world. But this is where we get into this interesting thing about gender equity, that even though the policies and the policies on paper are very, very equal, the attitudes in Nordic countries aren't. And those are sticky. And so what we have here in administrative data from 1980 to 2013, we show that most of the remaining gender inequality in earnings is due to children. The arrival of children creates a gender gap in earnings of around 20% in the long run. Remember, 20% in the long run in one of the most gender equal countries in the world. 20% even in one of the most gender equal countries for having kids. Okay. The arrival of, there we are, driven in roughly equal proportions by labor force participation, hours of work, and wage rates. So that is just what you put in plus wages. Underlying these child penalties, we find clear dynamic impacts on occupation, promotion to manager, sector, and the family friendliness of the firm for women relative to men. Based on a dynamic decomposition framework, we show that the fraction of gender equality caused by child penalties has increased dramatically over time from about 40% in 1980 to about 80% in 2013. I guess that's where they got the 60% number from, 80 minus 20. As a possible explanation, which okay, that's a bit reductive to just subtract there, but I don't know. That's one guess. I have no idea. I'm just presenting this stuff. I'm not a statistician. I do okay, but I read a lot of these papers and I really wish they presented data in a clearer format, just saying, but still 20% is a lot over the course of your lifetime. You know, would you want to make 20% less money over the course of your life when you have more expenses because you have another person you have to provide for? Okay, yeah. We show that the child penalties are transmitted through generations from parents to daughters, but not sons, consistent with an influence of childhood environment in the formation of women's preferences over family and career. And so it's not just preference. It's not just self-selection. This is important. I will show you the charts from this paper. So we have evolution for gender gaps in Denmark. Okay, so earnings drop. Remember, this is gender gap percentage. You notice how the gender gap has decreased over time. However, the wage rate the gender gap in the wage rate hasn't changed much, but the gap in hours worked and the gap in workplace participation is almost nothing. The gender gap in hours worked has plummeted, but the one indicator that's barely budged since 1980 is the gender gap in wages. Okay, but earnings have fallen. This is the stuff, the granular detail. In earnings have fallen for the percentage of gap. The only thing that's stubborn is the wage rate. Women are just getting paid less. And unfortunately, it just again and again and again and again. Why? Okay, part of it is attitudes. This, again, one of the most gender equal countries in the world. Okay. Now, these are pressures that are real. Just because they're just opinion doesn't mean people don't have. So this is Denmark, one of the most gender balanced countries in the world. Do you think women should work outside the home full-time, part-time, or not at all when they are married but with no children? Almost unanimous. Women should. US, UK, Denmark, Sweden, yes, work outside the home. Women with children under school age, so newborns, it plummets that women should be working full-time. US, UK, significantly different opinions than Denmark and Sweden about whether women with children under school age should work part-time. Stay at home. Look at this. Whoa. US, UK, the blue and the green. Huge. Almost 60% of people in the UK think that women with children under school age should just stay home. Just women, right? Women with children in school. Suddenly, the UK still thinks they should stay home. What the heck is going on, UK? Or at least work part-time. US, it pops back up. Denmark, Sweden, full-time, part-time. Not many people think women with school-age kids should just stay at home the whole time. Women with children who should leave home, who have left home, even in the US and UK. What's going on? That moms with no kids at home should only work part-time for 20% of the US and the UK. But you see how the opinions differ between the US and the UK that have more gender equity. as opposed to, that have less gender equity in the US and UK versus Denmark and Sweden that have much more gender equity, the attitudes are quite different regarding whether women should work, which affects offers and pressure to stay home. Now look at earnings. Okay. First childbirth. Women, these are male earnings, the top gray line. Doesn't change much. Drops slowly over time, but those post-childbirth years, no earning women. Now, okay, birth. Okay, first childbirth here, 0 years after childbirth, 1 year after childbirth. Okay, this is women not being able to work, not having maternity benefits, and therefore no earnings. But then they go back to work, and there's a bit, and then it crashes. So this is 10 years after the birth of the first child. However, the hours worked. Look at that. Look at that. The hours worked even right after birth. That isn't fully explained, but the curve line, the shape of the curve is affected by hours worked. But the overall pay is, the decrease is double compared to hours worked. Participation rates, similarly, there's a drop, but not as big a drop. Wage rates. So something's going on here. And this line is obviously a sum of these three, right? So there is an element of participation rates and hours worked, but it's not all of it. It's not, it's not even half of it, according to these lines. So the idea that there's something inherently duplicitous or shadowhearty or gold diggy hole, I had to have had that song stuck in my head. But there's something very real that women have to consider if they want to have kids. This is real. So it's not moral. It's a pragmatic decision that women just, even women's voting intentions in the US tend to focus more on their husband's ability to get a job than they do, especially in southern states. So for those who think that it's just women being greedy or lazy or shallow, it isn't that. It's pragmatic. They saw their mom go through it. They don't want to go through it. And then with the social pressures, even if it's not their husband putting pressures on them to stay home, it's everything else, especially in the US and the UK. And that's why I don't understand why the UK is just fixated on trans people, because ye gods, there's bigger problems than that. But yeah, there's things we can still solve. And how to solve this? Well, laws are not going to do all of it. There is an attitudinal shift that has to happen with employers. Real simple. Don't offer a mom less than you offer a dad. I don't care why you think it's okay to offer a mom less than you offer a dad. I mean, we had a single mother working for us when I worked in television, and holy crap, did that sensitize me to what they go through. Her daycare charged her $5 a minute if she was late picking her son up from daycare, and she had to leave work at 4:30 to be there on time. That's impossible with a 9-to-5 job. So did we let her leave? Hell yeah, we let her leave at 4:30. She actually dropped her son off at the neighbors and then came back to work for an hour. So we actually got an extra half hour of work from her as part of the deal, but we worked it out. We made it work, and sometimes the neighbor wasn't available. So sometimes accommodations needed to be made, but she worked her ass off and she was good at her job when she was there. But I kept saying, how do they expect women, well, any single parent with less, or working parents with less accommodating bosses to do this? And the answer is they just don't. And so when you see politicians or leaders talking about family values, when you see business leaders talk about family values, where's the on-site daycare? Where's the flex time for working parents, all working parents? And this is why I'm big on things like paternity leave and, dads being more involved in the childcare and not treating that like it's weird or creepy. Because if the expectations are more equal, then the pay is going to be more equal. It's not women's fault that society still expects them to have 2 jobs, one being childcare and cleaning and cooking and all these other things, as well as their day job that they get paid for. Women working a second unpaid job far more often than men is another fact. And this is why I can't stand this feminism manosphere golf, right? There are things in common that can be worked on to benefit everyone. Because men don't like the idea that a woman's out for their wallet, right? I understand why. I don't like it when anybody just seems to be using me for what they can get out of me. But these are things we can work on together. And the fact that the feminist sphere and the manosphere, I won't say sphere because that's redundant, but they just hate each other on a gut level. And they distrust each other. And there are reasons for that. But this isn't doing the issue any good. This isn't making anything any good. We have to understand the data. We have to see that this is real. And we collectively have to insist on better. This is something unions could be working on. This is something business leaders could advertise that, hey, we don't pay our moms less than our dads. We like our moms. Don't get me started on game dev in that way. It's an open secret that game dev doesn't want moms, and game dev companies don't want women over 40. It is just openly spoken about. You're considered an old lady after 40, and guys can be crazy old men in their 50s and 60s, but women, nope. There's still a stigma. So all that stuff about we support women and we stand behind women and don't harass women, it's a crock of shit. Gamers have known that for a while. But these things are real, and they are things we can do something about. And now you have the information. So one, you can understand a woman's position. And, if you don't make a ton of money, I know a lot of you guys are really well employed as like coders and stuff like that. So, but showing sensitivity to this stuff and understanding the issue and being willing and able to, pull weight, like make it even. If somebody works more hours, okay, the other person can do more housework. But if people are working an equal number of hours, they should be doing an equal amount around the home. And a lot of the imbalance, I believe, is just a lack of awareness or a lack of expectation because people's boys' mothers aren't on them to be good little housekeepers the way women's mothers are. That was an issue in my house. Men got passes, women were nagged. So, you can use this data to, be more compassionate, be more understanding, be more informed. And, if you don't make a ton of money, guys, be interested, show you understand and are willing to pull more weight in the domestic sphere. That's going to matter, especially if a woman is a career woman. And consistency is really, really important because a career woman's worst fear is that a guy's going to pull a bait and switch on her after the kid's born. Just like men, right? All right, we'll do the help support this channel and wrap up. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching Manly Mondays.